Why do we say Tehillim on Shabbos Mevorchim?
There's actually a sikha from the previous Rebbe where he references this. I guess I'll give you a little background, okay? First of all, we know that the Baal Shem Tov was the one who introduced a lot of the inyanim of saying Tehillim that we now do. We just didn't know about it until much more recently. The Hayom Yom that quotes the Tzemach Tzedek, who says that if we would know the power of the Kais Yeshuis of David Melech Yisrael and Imz Minas Yisrael, how powerful Tehillim is, Hayinu Eimrim Eisei B'chol Eis, we would say Tehillim non-stop. And then of course we have the idea that the previous Rebbe instituted to say Tehillim every day, so that you complete the recitation of Tehillim in a month. And there's a very powerful story associated with this inyan. When the previous Rebbe was arrested in Sivan, which is May of 1927, they ransacked his desk, they ransacked his office, the KGB, the anti-Semites. And they overlooked certain things. They were so full of hate that they didn't pay attention. And one of the things was they left on the Shulchan Gavoya, which means, I guess, a stender, a piece of paper, a note. The note is printed in the back of the Tehillim in one of the footnotes on one of the pages of the Kovetz Mechtavim that you have in the back of the Tehillim. And it begins, Herzach ein Yidden was hoffen auf Mashiach. And I think that's what it starts. Listen carefully, Jews who hope for Mashiach. And the previous Rebbe says that he's asking that people should say Tehillim, as it's divided according to the days of the month, and then to say Kaddish afterwards. Chasidim heisich, Chasidim I'm commanding, and Azoy Yidden betich, and Jews otherwise I'm requesting. And he says he gives brachas, and he finishes the Eibusha should help, it should be a good year. And from this conclusion of that page, that it should be a good year, there's an understanding that page was not written in Sivan, was written Tishrei time, it was written in the beginning of the year. Now the Hemshech HaSipur is that when the previous Rebbe was arrested, he went to jail for 18 and a half days, then he was released from prison, he went off to his Golus, which lasted 9 days, and then he came home. One of the people who was with him in his Golus was Rebbe L'chaim Altois. Rebbe L'chaim was a very big Chassid, he was called Yedid Beis Rebbe. The previous Rebbe told him, after he was released from prison, Far Peizayin habe ich sich far stark geschrocken. I was very afraid of this year, 1927. Wegen sich habe ich nicht getracht, und gerecht, I didn't think about myself, getracht habe wegen Chassidim. I was thinking what's going to be with Chassidim. Bis ich habe geheißen, sagen Tehillim, or gebeten sagen Tehillim, ist mir angekommen sehr schwer. Until I commanded or requested people to say Tehillim, was very hard for me. And he indicated that once he asked Chassidim to say Tehillim, it became a little easier. So Rebbe L'chaim asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, when did the Rebbe speak about Tehillim? So the Rebbe told him Simchas Torah. And Rebbe L'chaim remembered that there was a Kiddush by the previous Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Tzsteiner Sarah, and by that Kiddush, the previous Rebbe spoke about saying Tehillim and begged Chassidim to say Tehillim. So the recitation of Tehillim began in the year the Rebbe was arrested, in the beginning of that year, and the previous Rebbe claimed that is one of the things which helped him get through that difficult time. One of the interesting curiosities about this that people forget is that when he originally instituted this, he was concerned about the idea of Haisaf ala Tefillah. It shouldn't look like adding to the davening. So he said then that after Aleinu they should say Kaddish. The Chazan should walk away from the Amid and go to the Bimas HaKriya and say Tehillim and say Kaddish in another place. A year later, in Peches, the previous Rebbe said, it's no longer necessary to go someplace else. It's sort of been added to the tefillah, and you could say Tehillim in the same place where the Chazan davens, which of course is our custom, that you should say after Aleinu and Kaddish, you say Tehillim and a Kaddish again, and of course if there's an Aval, you also say Kaddish to Rabbanan and so forth. In the 30s, there was a Chassid by the name of Reb Chaim David, Reb Chaim David Lane. Reb Chaim David Lane is a Chain. And there's a wonderful book, a really, really wonderful book, very well researched and incredibly well written, called Avnei Chain. And if you're going to read a book of Hasidic stories that's packed with good nuggets, this is one of the best. It's really, really, it's a concentration of the best of Hasidic lore. It's really, really wonderful. And It's the story of some of the most important Lubavitcher Chassidim, Rebbe Peretz Chain, Rebbe David Tzvi Chain, Rebbe Mendel Chain, and others. And one of the personalities in this book is Reb Chaim David. Chaim David Lane was a sheikhet, lived in Neville, died at the age of 98 years old. And when he was in his 70s or 80s, he came to the Rebbe Rashab and asked him about quitting the shechita based on the concern that maybe he wasn't strong enough. So the Rebbe Rashab told him to put his hand out and to put a glass full of water on his hand and to see his hand was shaking or not. His hand was steady as a rock. He shechted into his 90s. He passed away right before the Holocaust. Chaim David Lane was a very big chassid, a moidendige chassid, a whole nother kind of Jew. You read about these people, they were superhuman beings. And Reb Chaim David Lane actually wrote the previous Rebbe a suggestion in a letter that in addition to saying Tehilim every day so that you finish Tehilim over the course of the month, he proposed that you say Tehilim every Shabbos. And by the way, I heard from somebody that in other Chilas Kadishas like Chernobyl, they say Tehilim every Shabbos. I think something like that. And the previous Rebbe liked the idea but modified it. Instead of saying Tehilim every Shabbos, they say Tehilim every Shabbos Mevorchim. And the explanation for why the Rebbe did not adopt that every single Shabbos Tehilim should be said only once a month, there's various hypotheses offered, but the one that seems most widely accepted is because we're supposed to learn Chassidus before davening, and you don't want to just say Tehilim. So once a month you say Tehilim, and even then you have to chaparan a little Chassidus, and the other weeks you should say you should learn Chassidus. This is the source of the minig of saying Tehilim Shabbos Mevorchim. It's very special because it's a custom of the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe wrote and said publicly, it's been printed, that we owe a special thanks to the Chassid Reb Chaim David for his suggestion of saying Tehilim on Shabbos Mevorchim. Now, it's been said that it seems perhaps disrespectful. Who is a Chassid to write to the Rebbe and make suggestions and so on? It's really foolish to even engage in this kind of discussion because the previous Rebbe could very well have said no. And the fact that he adopted it and embraced it and actually identified which chassid proposed it tells you how the previous Rebbe felt about not only the suggestion, but the person making the suggestion. But from a simple perspective of Das Tach, you need to remember that Chaim David Lane was literally twice the previous Rebbe's age. The previous Rebbe was in his 40s and Chaim David was in his 80s or 90s. And I'm not saying that matters because a Rebbe is a whole nother being. But nevertheless, it was not a little boy who came up with the idea. It was an elder chassid, a Mesidus Nefesh, who was dedicated to the Rabbeim for almost 100 years, who came up with this proposal, and the Rebbe was very happy to acknowledge. And that's how we have these minhagim. And of course, in addition to these two minhagim of selling Tehilim, we also have the minig which the Rebbe attributed, the previous Rebbe attributed to the Baal Shem Tov. Beginning with the second day of Chodesh Elul, you say 3 kapitlach Tehilim each day. And on Yom Kippur you say 36 kapitlach, 9 before Kol Nidre, 9 after Kishon Shalamita, 9 after Musaf, 9 after Ne'ilah. So you complete the Tehilim during the 40 days from Chodesh Elul till after Yom Kippur. And of course, in addition to all of this, there is the idea that I mentioned before, that in Mayinu Yedim, the Chashivas of Amidas, Psuke Tehilim, Hayinu Eimrim Oisam, V'chol Eis. We would constantly say the Kais Yeshuis of David HaMelech.